So it used to be called the black market. It's the guys that were selling prior to being legalized. Now in New Jersey, New York, a lot of the states are saying, we want to find an entry point for you guys to come in. So you're no longer...
The guys that were illegally growing it back in the day.
Yes.
The guys who know how to grow it. And
this is going to hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Pfizer coming in and trying to do the same thing with the mom and pop cannabis stores.
Oh, 100.
That doesn't sit right with me.
100%. But here's the problem. Are you into capitalism? Because if you are, then that's just the natural progression. And it's sad to say that because I don't agree with it, to your point, but it's just how the world works. And if you have something viable, then people are going to come after it. Cannabis or hemp even was viable years ago, but it was threatening someone's bottom line.
William Randolph Hearst.
So they went after it.
Yeah.
They went after it.
The Marijuana Tax Act of 1938 was written on his behest.
you were there when they wrote that, weren't you?
I was. I
think he signed it.
I actually signed it. But the funny
right
thing,
under John Hancock.
I've read the Marijuana Tax Act of 1938 in preparation for your first show,
Yep.
and it is laced with incredibly racist points of view.
We got into
100%.
that on the last episode. Which
and that's something that like has to be spoken about because, you know, New Jersey is basing a lot of their application process on social equity. Why? Because this was a plant. Imagine like you're Italian, right?
No.
No?
God,
I
bite your
always
tongue.
think he's Italian. Okay,
Bite
you're
your
Italian.
tongue.
Imagine you can't grow a tomato, but it's part of... Oh, that's funny. So speaking in my ear. So, you know, you're being told that you can't grow a tomato and that tomatoes are outlawed. But more than prior to that, you were told you have to grow tomatoes. Tomatoes are going to sustain this entire country. They're good, you know, they're a good source of vitamin C, vitamin blah, blah, blah. That's what happened with hemp. Hemp was actually on its road to being...
Replacing paper.
Replacing paper. Right when the legalization prohibition happened, they actually had a prototype car made completely out of hemp.
And then the movie Reefer Madness was made. And
could you imagine?
But you know what growing tomatoes? You know what growing tomatoes does to Italians?
What?
Makes you grow chest hair and you sprout gold neck chains.
Doesn't make you lose.
Hold on.
Doesn't make you lose your head hair.
Hold on. You know who I'm talking about.
your
Take
growth?
it easy. Take it easy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But that's what a tomato does. That's
Yeah.
what a tomato does.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, without weed back in the day, where would Cheech and Chong be?
It wouldn't be
Yeah.
as funny. But they
Yeah.
took that acid. They took a lot of acid too. So that was a different thing. But so the industry is changing
Yes.
and it's growing. And I like the small business owner. I do. And I'm always a champion of the small business owner. Big corporate people come in because a small business owner, they're going to have employees. They might not have as many employees, but they're going to treat their employees like family.
And most of them, like, so that's why New Jersey is trying to get the legacy growers and the people in the legacy market to come into it legally. Because
What is a legacy grower?
So it used to be called the black market. It's the guys that were selling prior to being legalized. Now in New Jersey, New York, a lot of the states are saying, we want to find an entry point for you guys to come in. So you're no longer...
The guys that were illegally growing it back in the day.
Yes.
The guys who know how to grow it. And
Illegally growing, illegally selling, distributing. Those are the guys that we're trying to pull into the legal market.
so they're the heroes now, and they're the guys that we used to lock up back in the day during our career.
How sad is that?
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
now, and because someone arbitrarily decided that this plant, think about that, okay? This plant is illegal. Like, that's the crazy part to me is, you know, do I see certain issues with the plant? Yes. You were going to touch upon driving while, you know.
That's my sticking point.
I know. And that's a lot of people.
Listen, with alcohol, you got what they used to have the breathalyzer. Now they have an alcohol test. They could tell spot on at that point how much alcohol you have in your system. There's no way of checking for that with cannabis.
And it's being, it is something that people bring up all the time because there is a fear that someone who is altered or impaired is going to hurt someone. But studies have shown that in states where it's been legalized, there hasn't been a rise in, and I have a theory behind it. I think because
There's a rise in accidents because I spoke with a cop out from Denver. There's a rise in accidents, but they're like 20-mile-an-hour accidents.
But now,
that's because people are paranoid, and when you're driving impaired, you're a lot more conscious that, we're drunks. Think about like alcohol, how alcohol makes you act physically versus cannabis, right? Cannabis, you're kind of zoned in. Alcohol, you're a little bit more,
But hitting that kid running out in the street, it doesn't matter, 20 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour.
What's your response time? What's your reflexes at that point? But getting back to that driving, I got a funny story for you.
Your friend who was driving.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You told me this one. This is a great story.
We had a friend of ours that he took an edible one day, and he was driving to his friend's house, and he's going on Route 80, and he's sitting there, and the edible just started kicking in, as he's driving. He said, I could feel it from my head down. It just started and I'm slumping. He said, I pull over to the slow lane. He said, I'm driving. He said, all these cars are just flying past me. And I'm sitting there, and the guy's sitting there going, like, where are the troopers? These guys are they're doing 100 miles an hour. He looked down and he was doing 45.
Yeah.
But so the problem with operation, and I know this from the police here, so they have to get what's called a DRE, a drug recognizance expert, to come in.
Drug recognizance, drug recognition.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
DRE.
One of those. Yeah,
Which
DRE.
right now is being, it's held up in court.
Right. DREs, a lot of judges don't, that's the point I was getting to. A lot of judges don't recognize DREs. So somebody who's
a DRE can't do anything because you got to go on the alcohol test first. If you have if you come up 0.01 for alcohol, you can't go to the DRE because you have alcohol in your system, alcohol in your system. So now a DRE is null and void at that point.
So they got to come up with a better system to test for driving while impaired, because we have children, and that's my concern. We have children that are soon going to be driving age before we know it.
Yep.
And that's a concern of mine. And I don't want to see them. I know there's prototypes out there that they can test if you've been high in the past couple hours. Yeah. But there needs to be case law. And we spoke about this in the first episode where they sort of put the cart before the horse. But you had said something, I remember this, where they have to put it in play and then figure it out.
Unfortunately, yes. And so right now they're going through it in workplaces, right? Because cannabis is legal. And if it's your medication, if you decide to go on your lunch break and have a couple of shots, and you're not impaired, but you had a couple of shots, should you be fired?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
But for some people, and I'm going to rebut because it's not the way I roll, but for some people, their job is to go and have lunch with someone. Oh, you're ordering wine? I'll order wine with you because
business meetings.
Business meetings, right? That's how they are conducted. That's how so now your business is cannabis, right? And you smoke with someone. When you go back to your work, can you still do your job safely? Well, most places and most things, yes, unless you're driving a pitchfork, unless you're.
It's not an argument that I'm not being adversarial to you, but if I'm a swimming pool salesman and I'm selling a swimming pool to somebody, I don't have to take a swim in their backyard in order to sell them the swimming pool. There is a certain business decorum, and if cannabis is the business that I think it is, a business meeting should be a business meeting. It shouldn't be even with the alcohol. It's the same thing. A business meeting should be a business meeting.
But that's how you conduct your life, and that's not how a lot of people conduct their lives.
And the alcohol salesman may go to a place and say, "Here, try our tequila, as opposed to this tequila."
100% samples.
Little samples.
They send the cute girls with the skimpy outfits and here you go, try our
I've never seen them before.
Oh yeah, it's the same. I mean, think about all the sales reps for pharmaceuticals. They were all hot babes that got their way into a doctor's office.
Yeah, but they're not doing the pharmaceuticals that they're pushing. You follow me? So if you, somebody who's truly in the wine industry, take the wine industry, somebody who is a wine taster, that's all they do. They never swallow the wine, ever. Because in my mind, business is business, pleasure is pleasure. If you want to, after hours, get together with them and sample product, do whatever, that's a different story. But business, it doesn't allow for a clear head.
See, and it's funny because now that I microdose, I'm going to disagree with you because it actually allows for a deeper conversation and it allows for.
Well, we've run into this before with somebody else, where they were they were macro dosing, but they became incoherent. They really did, and they thought they were being coherent. Yep. Like when you're drunk, you think you're making tons of sense. But if you ever played a recording of it, you're like, oh my gosh.
But,
what is
Are
this?
you talking about someone we had here?
Yes.
Or not here, but yeah.
Yes.
That was hysterical.
But it was very funny. But again, it's just one of those things where I may not agree with you on it. I take everything you say, and I know I'm a realist. I do know certain business meetings they take place over liquor. I do know that.
Yeah. And
I mean, even like they say, most business deals are made on a golf course.
100%.
Right? So what do? They go out, they play golf, and they drink, and the deal is settled. You may not be working at that point, but you're still a representative of your company, and you're having alcohol.
100%. And that's why a lot of women aren't involved in a lot of business deals, because they don't get invited to those golf outings. Sorry, I had to throw that dig in there because you're not
Because
wrong.
women golfers are awful. No.
Well, a friend of mine once said, I got a nice set of golf clubs for my wife. And I said, hey, good trade. I'm sorry. It was a joke. I'm kidding. I don't want to piss off the women
Well,
out there.
I think that's a good trade. But so again, that's my idea of business. And when I go into a business meeting, I always like having a clear head. We've had issues not issues, but we've had invitations to have, number one, I don't drink, but to drink during one of these shows, I can't do it because I need to remain sharp.
Yeah. So, did I consume before I walked in here? No, because I have to drive my car home.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's called responsibility.
it is. I actually will tell you a funny story. I'm going to out myself. I sometimes will microdose during the day because that's my time, I use it as a form of physical therapy. I use it as a form of cognitive, it tickles your brain. It helps with creativity. It really, for me, it works that way. And one day I have everything done. I am golden. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to smoke a little bit. And I do. And my kid calls from school.
So you don't do
Mom, you got to come pick me up.
Yes.
You don't do the edible.
I don't do the edible because I like flower. I know the onset of flower.
Flower is
smoking the traditional plant, the plant itself. And the onset is 10, 15 minutes. I know how long it's going to last. I know how it feels.
We had a friend of ours that had a really bad experience with
I was
edibles.
just going to say that. We have a
Yes.
mutual friend who
Yes. We had a friend.
we're
and-
waiting
Why
for
don't
the
you tell
edibles.
that? Why don't you tell that story?
But I'll tell you my story. So I had to go and knock on someone's door and say, this is what I did, and I need you to drive to pick up my kid.
So
Why did I do that? Because I am trying to live my life according to my responsibility,
just because it's legal doesn't mean it's the Wild West.
For some people it does. For other people like myself, I try to stay within a lane,
That's one of my concerns too, is these people, like you said, the Wild West, they're going to say, oh, it's legal, it's overindulged, like people do with alcohol now.
And here's
alcohol is legal, so they go out, they get drunk, they get in their car and they drive. Now that cannabis is legal, what's to stop them from smoking all day, overindulging, getting in their car and going
here's
somewhere?
the scary part. The edibles are what jack most people, because when you take flower, for example, you feel it instantly. When you take a concentrate, when you take an edible, you don't know. Your friend the story you just told, you don't know how long before the onset. I had a friend of mine who decided he was going to try it. He didn't listen to the advice of the wellness associate. Jackass tripled the dosage because it wasn't coming on fast enough, strong enough. And I get a call. From his panicky wife who's like, oh my God,
I think
what's
he's
happening?
dying.
I get a call from him going, dude. And I'm like, I thought you would know better. And all I did was, and this is the beauty of cannabis versus alcohol. With alcohol, once a person is so drunk, you can't, I was a bartender. You can't pull them back. You just can't. With cannabis, they go to a certain point and then you see it. You literally see the high coming down. I put this gentleman in a chair. I got him comfortable and I literally had my hand on his shoulder going, you're just an asshole. You're just an asshole.
So I know a little
So you
bit-
put him in a timeout.
I did.
There
And you know what? The next
you're in
day,
a timeout.
he called and thanked me. And I said, what did you learn? He said, I learned I'm an asshole. That's right. Because when someone tells you to only take this much, listen to them because they have your best interest. And that's where, education is the number one tool that I can offer the world is how long will gummies? I just did a social experiment with a group where they've all tried gummies, and they were like, "Oh my God, I was jacked for hours," and "Oh my God." Well, now you've had a negative experience with cannabis.
Do you have any placebo gummies?
So, yeah, I should try that actually on people. So instead, I brought flour. They had immediate reaction, immediate feeling, and they were like, "Oh."
Well,
and I'm like, yes.
this one person you're talking about, I have some extra information on that one because I did speak to them, and so they're again a jackass. So they thought they didn't know that edibles take a period of time to hit, so they just kept taking and taking and taking, and
So that's the issue.
and then when it hit, it's like, whoa.
And that's an issue that like more information needs to be given out to the public on how long, and this is one of my roles used to be, and I still do it, is the education portion. How long will an edible take? You know, because to your point, you take it and 45 minutes later, nothing. So you take another one, and just as you're taking the second dose, which you can't undo, bam, it hits you, and now you're jacked.
Isn't that specific to each person, though?
Yes, and that's the
You know,
problem.
it's like
too.
having a beer. Somebody may get drunk off of 2 beers. Someone may get drunk off of 5 beers.
But unless you've done it before, and most people, and it, not only can it be per person, but what did you eat that day? Because it's going through your digestive tract. So what did you eat that day? How fast is it going to hit you? Have you had any food? You know, that also has to do with it. Do you understand what you're taking and the dosage, you know, behind it? People need to ask more questions instead of, because it's so new that I think everyone's running out, and edibles just sounds easier because they don't have to worry about the smell and their neighbors won't know. But then once you're committed for hours, hours.
So this new law that's come in there, this new cannabis law, what, as you, from somebody who's inside the industry, what are some of the sufferings of the business owners who are in there? Like there's got to be, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Oh no. So I'll tell you, to your point, the big companies are coming in. They have the capital, they have the resources, they understand how to build the infrastructure because they, you know, something goes wrong, they have more money to pull on. Small time people think it's a gold rush. They really do. They hear cannabis, they think like, "Oh my God, I'm going to mortgage my house. I'm going to open a cultivation site. I'm going to sell weed." And I'm like, whoa. Have you ever sold weed before? That's why we're trying to pull in the legacy market, because they actually understand the product.
Well, that's what Kevin said, though. It's really taken away from the mom and pop market already.
In a lot of cases it has, and we're trying to, in New Jersey, we're trying to make sure that those people have an entry point. We're trying to make sure that they have, you know.
Are you going to be stuck working in a factory in one of these larger grow houses just because you want to get involved in the weed industry? And
you might, and some people love that. I mean, some people love going in, doing the same thing every day, and it soothes their soul, and it just, they know what's expected of them, and that's okay. You know, people worked factories years ago and didn't mind. It's for people who want to self-develop, like, you know, how can they learn within the industry? How can they develop themselves? I'll tell you, I just finished sending off to a college a curriculum on cannabis, because there's so many ancillary opportunities, meaning like you do packaging, you know, someone printed this up for you. Like, this is needed in cannabis. You know, someone made your T-shirt. That's needed in cannabis. Like, there's so many ancillary ways to get involved as well.
There's a lot of marijuana T-shirts out there that I see.
Yeah, but, you know, like...
Yeah, and where's our higher high T-shirts?
Oh, I know. I have to actually make more. It's one of the things to your point of like a small business owner, is not having the resources or capital to be like, here's my marketing team. They're gonna get this on the line for me. Everything is me, myself, and I.
You know, I kind of like the legacy idea, because I'm sure in law enforcement,
it gets drug dealers off the streets. It
gets them off the street. It gives them a viable job.
Correct.
Yep.
But now they got to pay taxes.
In your career in law enforcement, have you ever gone into like a weed grow house?